We never know in advance how draft prospects are going to work out, but for the Giants in the first draft under Buster Posey, their day one picks definitely felt safe and underwhelming.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for about 6.5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please smash that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And coming up on today's show, Giants drafted Gavin Kilen, 13th overall. They only had 2 picks on day one, which included rounds 1 through 3. Some teams had like 7 picks. Giants had to sacrifice some. So we're going to break down their 2 picks on day 1 of the draft. Also, some minor league news that is majorly relevant. A couple of players released and what it means for likely promotions of some others. And then finally, the AllStar Game. Apparently, the Giants are the favorites for 2028. So we'll get into that as well. But first and foremost, like I said, we don't know how prospects are going to pan out. We never do. We have somewhat of an educated guess, but in baseball, it's very hard to predict. But that being said, you can kind of get a sense of the type of players that the Giants went after. And apparently, we're going to quote some, insiders about curiosity about how Buster Posey's first draft as president of baseball operations would go. And the quote is that they went with safe picks. And what does that mean exactly? Well, it means players like Gavin Kilen and their third round pick, Trevor Cohen, who was the first unranked player by MLB.com to be drafted. And they took him 85th overall. And they had ranked many more than 85 players. And so that's where I'm going to say, you can't knock a pick at this stage. You just can't, because, oftentimes picks get knocked, and oftentimes some of the best players that come out of a draft don't come out of the first couple rounds even. Logan Webb, where was he drafted? Well, he wasn't drafted in the first round. Just to be going a little bit of a tangent, he was drafted in the 4th round, 118th overall. And so, that's just one of a gazillion examples. Like Albert Pujols was drafted super late in the draft. So anyway, the Fangraphs quick write-up on day 1 of the Giants draft, taking Kilen and Trevor Cohen, is as follows. Quote, "Someone in last night's chat made a Joe Panick Gavin Kilen comp, and I don't think that's crazy. Kilen has a better shot of staying at shortstop, though. Cohen was the first player unranked by MLB to be picked, a medium-sized center fielder whose batted ball spray is so opposite field oriented, that it's a red flag risk as to whether he'll be able to catch pro fastballs, catch up to pro fastballs. The industry was wondering what Buster Posey's first draft class would be like, and the answer through day 1 was, quote, safe feeling college players." And so this is definitely a return, it seems, to some of the later Brian Sabian era draft picks, like Joe Panick, and then beyond, where, to be fair, they had so much success with drafting in the in the 2000s, like, but once 2010 rolled around and beyond, like they didn't draft anybody who made any kind of impact. And so let's just get into Gavin Kilen. We'll also talk about the Joe Panick comp, but just to give a little more context, the write-up on MLB.com by Maria Guardado, she points out after 2 years at Louisville, the left-handed hitting Kilen, who's a middle infielder, shortstop, second baseman, transferred to Tennessee where he slashed .357, batting average, .441 on base, .671 slugging, with 15 home runs, earning first-team All-American honors from Perfect Game and Baseball America. He was ranked coming into the draft as the 15th best draft prospect. So it's not like the Giants made a total reach with their first pick, but what they did is they went with players who have like limited power potential perhaps and are more contact oriented and low strikeout rates. And so some of you may be rejoicing that, but it's hard to win in today's game without some thump. And so maybe they just don't think that they'll be able to develop that. I don't know. Like in their ballpark, you'd look at Bryce Eldridge and they think the world of him, and he's got huge power. So for Kilen, he analyzed his own game on, and it's quoted on sfgiants.com. He said, quote, "I've always done a really good job of making contact. For me, this year, it was kind of the switch of, all right, you can make good contact, but let's try and hit for not necessarily more power, but let's put yourself in better counts and do more damage. Catch balls in front, higher exit velocities. I think the bat to ball has been a knack I've always had playing baseball." And so that's good to hear. Like that's the lingo that I want to hear is, let's try to hit for not necessarily more power, but let's try to put yourself in better counts and do more damage. So that's kind of the modern game in a nutshell. If you're just swinging at everything, which it's been a long time, certainly under Farhan Zaidi, they didn't draft players who had kind of reports of being overly aggressive. There was a lot of, the ability to draw walks and like be patient and selective was baked into everything that they did. To be fair, they haven't had a lot of success with their drafts under Farhan Zaidi and company. So it's not like we can say, well, this is bad because it's dissimilar to their recent draft strategies. Michael Holmes, though, is the senior director of amateur scouting for the Giants, and he's the one ultimately in charge. Well, no, Buster Posey is ultimately in charge, but Michael Holmes is still having a major impact on the picks that the Giants make, and he was there under Farhan Zaidi, and he's still there now under Posey. And so of Kilen, Holmes said, quote, "It's a middle-of-the-diamond player who played a lot of shortstop over his 3-year college career. He also played a little second base, kind of elite bat-to-ball skills. We're talking about a career 10% strikeout rate for him in his college years, more walks than strikeouts. We think it's more of a line drive hitter." That's an important line there. We think it's more of a line drive hitter. So like an admission that you're not talking about a ton of power. And then he says, but it was a guy that was able to hit 15 home runs this year. So we think there's some power to come. Just really excited to have him. And I've noticed like every player they talk about, they're like, we're just really lucky and happy to have him. And he's been saying that for years. And so, take it with a grain of salt. And we'll get into their second pick and how there's something a little bit concerning about the quote from Michael Holmes, in my opinion. But I want to get into that Joe Panick comp as well. So we'll discuss the Joe Panick comp and also talk about Trevor Cohen and so much more, including a couple of significant cuts at the minor league level of some players and what that means for likely promotions of some others. We'll get into all of that, and the AllStar Game may be coming to San Francisco in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When I used to have all of my accounts, investments, spending, whatever, all over the place, it was so much harder to manage than it is now. Having it all visible in one hub is game-changing, I promise you. Take control of your finances like I did with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, here we go. We're going to get more into the Joe Panick comp and if that's a good thing or not. And some cuts at the minor league level, also the Giants' second round pick and the 2028 AllStar Game potentially coming to San Francisco and maybe likely coming to San Francisco. We'll get into all of that. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will have the great honor of speaking with Millard Thomas from Locked On D-backs. Always a great collaboration when Millard joins the show, and we're going to be talking about everything. The first half, the All-Star Game, players on our teams that made the All-Star Game, just checking in on some of our predictions. D-backs not doing so great. Are they selling? Might they sell like a Josh Naylor to the Giants? We'll get into all of that with Millard tomorrow. So the Joe Panick comp, which was thrown out, and when I say Fangraphs, this is Eric Longenhagen of Fangraphs, who said, someone in the chat threw that out. Another player who has been comped to Gavin Kilen, by the way, is Gavin Lux. Maybe not so much the Gavin Lux who was considered the top prospect in baseball, but more like the actual Gavin Lux, which is another example of how even when players reach the upper minors, we think we have an idea of what they're going to do, and it doesn't always pan out, like Gavin Lux, where he's become like a decent player, but not the superstar that many thought he would be. Same with Jared Kelenic of the Mets, and then Mariners, and then Braves, and then I don't even know where he is now. But anyway, looking at Joe Panick's career, he put up 8.4 Fangraphs wins above replacement. However, 3.8 of those came in 2015, and really 5.1 came in 173 game span to start his major league career. And indeed, his strikeout rate was just 10.4% over those first 2 years. He looked like the real deal. He hit 309, 364 on base, limited power, but still a 309 average and a 364 on base with good second base defense. It was like, okay, this is great. You've got another cornerstone offensive or just position player on your hands. But then after that point, Joe Panick went on to have an 82 weighted runs created plus for the rest of his career, about 20% below major league average offense, 250 average, 318 on base. So that on base is kind of average. But the thing is, with no power, 357 slugging, 107 isolated power, he just kind of faded from the league, and he hasn't played since 2021 in the major leagues. He's now like retired, I believe, and he's definitely not playing. Last he played professionally was 2021. So I don't know. I mean, if Gavin Kilen turns out to be Joe Panick, like, is that a good thing? I don't know. I guess, like, relatively speaking, putting up 8 career wins above replacement is like a impressive for any draft prospect, because it's hard to make the major leagues at all, let alone have a little success, be better than replacement level at the major leagues. But the Giants need kind of upside, in my opinion. And so that's why I don't know that like a safe pick is really what they need. I feel like I would be taking big swings, or like that's what my preference would be. You can let me know what you think. I mean, Joe Panick, like I said, he was good initially, but then he stopped being so good, and that's why the Giants traded him away no, did they trade him or did they just cut him loose? I don't even remember how his Giants career ended. He ended up on the Mets in 2019, started the year with the Giants, and then he just kind of fizzled out within a couple years. And so there was a lot of promise, but then it just fell apart eventually, and it never materialized into all that impressive of a career. So we'll see. Obviously, time will tell. But with their second pick, the Giants picked someone who was unranked by MLB. They ranked at least 250 players, and the Giants took Trevor Cohen 85th overall with their second pick of the day, which was in the third round. They surrendered their second and fifth round draft picks because of signing Willy Adames, who had rejected the qualifying offer from the Brewers. So per sfgiants.com, the calling card for Cohen, who, by the way, is an outfielder who bats left and throws left. Kilen bats left, throws right. So left-handed hitting, yeah, that means Joe Panick comp makes sense. He's left-handed too. But Cohen's calling card, we'll read it from MLB. They say, Cohen, a native of Brigantine, New Jersey, wasn't ranked among MLB Pipeline's top 250 draft prospects, though he's another left-handed hitter who is known for his contact skills, as he hit .387 with 24 doubles, 1 triple, 2 home runs, and 19 steals over 57 games for Rutgers this year. Cohen posted an 8% strikeout rate in college and finished with more walks, 30, than strikeouts, 15, during his junior season for the Scarlet Knights. He didn't flash a ton of power at the collegiate level, hitting only 4 homers over 3 seasons, but the Giants believe they can teach him to elevate the ball more. That's good to hear. Once they bring him into the organization. Cohen primarily played right field at Rutgers in deference to Peyton Bonds, the nephew of Giants legend Barry Bonds, but Giants director of amateur scouting Michael Holmes said he believes Cohen has the tools to stick in center field. And the quote from Holmes is as follows: "We thought he was a little underrated. Our area scout Cameron Sarcone, I don't know how to say it. Sarcone is probably correct. Was very passionate about the player, knew him very well, spent a lot of time with him, spent a lot of time watching him. We were able to get a lot of looks at him this spring. In a lot of ways, he won us over with his interview at the Combine. I'm a big believer in not only betting on players and talent, but people. The time we sat down with him at the Combine kind of really sold us on the individual he was." So look, I'm all in favor of people matter and personality matters and all that, but I hope you're not putting too much weight on how good of a person he is, because at the end of the day, you could be a great person and like waste away in A ball. You gotta be a good baseball player. Obviously they know that, but to say what really sold us on him was his interview at the Combine. It's just somewhat interesting and perhaps red flag like, but probably not. I mean, they're just saying we already liked his talent, but then what pushed us over the top was his personality. But it's definitely a departure. Like these two players, like guys who hit a guy who hit a total of 4 home runs in 3 seasons in college. And by the way, when both players, they said more walks than strikeouts, it's somewhat easy to do that when you have a very low strikeout rate. It doesn't mean you're a great at selectivity. And that's what we were saying with Kilen. Like we just said, he was overly aggressive. Although when we look at the numbers, 6% walk rate in 2023, 3% walk rate in 2024, and then it jumped up to 12.2% in 2025. So that's definitely a good trend. And again, Kilen was ranked as the 15th best draft prospect by Eric Longenhagen at Fangraphs. Cohen not ranked. I don't know how many prospects Fangraphs ranked, but wasn't in the top 250 per MLB. Fangraphs said Cohen's strength is speed and Keelan's strength is contact and SEC performance. So anyway, those are the two players the Giants took on day one. Obviously, there were 20 rounds to the draft, and so I think it's not my wheelhouse to get into the weeds with their later round picks, but time will tell. But definitely this feels different than recent drafts. But again, they didn't have a lot of success with their top picks in recent drafts, and that's putting it generously. I think Patrick Bailey is an exception, but he hasn't hit. It's all defense, but still good player. Like one of the top defenders in baseball. But Giants need some offense. We know that. But is this the kind of player that gives it to you? Is it low strikeout rates and singles? Is that really going to get it done? We'll see. But it's an interesting change in strategy, I think. So, coming up in just a minute, a couple of notable former top prospects for the Giants cut. And then what that likely means for replacing them on the rosters they were cut from. And then how about this AllStar Game deal? Why is it maybe coming to San Francisco? What are the details? We'll describe in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades. Supply House, whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled pros are already taking advantage. Now is your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We are going to get into the players that were cut by the Giants and what it likely means. I think it's significant. And also, want to go to an All-Star game and a home run derby in San Francisco? You very well may have the chance in just a few years. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, we'll be discussing all things baseball, All-Star break, trade deadline with Millard from Locked On D-backs. Always a fun time talking with Millard, and can't wait. So anyway, I'm hearing this from Roger Munter on Twitter/X, who says this morning, there's been a lot of excitement for the Giants farm system this week, but today is a sad day as Jairo Pomares and Vaun Brown were both released. Injuries derailed both of them, and neither were quite able to gain traction in tough AA league. So these two each had their moments of being considered legit prospects for the Giants. Vaun Brown always did it in a crazy way with like insane batting averages on balls in play, and he was like older than the competition where he was playing. And Pomares, I know at times, was just considered one of the better prospects for the Giants. Again, goes to show you how difficult professional baseball is, and how hard it is to predict also. So I don't know where Roger got this information, but I definitely trust that it's correct. And he points out this leaves Richmond, the AA Flying Squirrels for the Giants, with just a 9-player position group, which obviously will need to be filled. Speculation will obviously focus on a potential Bo Davidson and or Scott Bandura promotion on Friday, because they're also on All-Star break time, but we shall see. So, yeah, it's always tough when players get cut, especially when they've never made the majors, and so they never really got paid and all that. So best of luck to Vaun Brown and Jairo Pomares. Moving forward, difficult day, hard, it's just, there's no way around it. It's tough. But when we talk about a player like Bo Davidson, I have been following this guy pretty closely this season, because he's put up monstrous numbers in high A for the Giants, hitting .309 with a .412 on base and .507 slugging for Eugene. And that's a 148 weighted runs created plus there. He's 23 years old. He just turned 23 10 days ago. And there was a fascinating write-up on Bo Davidson. I think it was Bo Davidson. I should be certain before I say something like that. That on sfgiants.com, I'm not going to get into it because I'm not positive it was about him. It was basically comparing him to Barry Bonds, the scout who signed him. I think that I'm almost certain that it was Bo Davidson. Obviously, that's a crazy comp, but the scout was like not intentionally going to watch Bo Davidson, but then saw Bo Davidson and was like, oh my gosh, this guy, he called Michael Holmes or somebody up in the organization and was like, I think I just found Barry Bonds. So a lot of hype within the organization about the talent of this player. He was a non-drafted free agent, so he wasn't drafted in the top 20 rounds in 2023, but they signed him. So obviously, if they really thought he was the next Barry Bonds, they would have drafted him first, So, but anyway, while it's sad to lose to have to cut loose a Vaun Brown and a Jairo Pomares, it does mean certainly it means promotions of some deserving players from lower levels up to AA, which is once you're in AA, like things get real and you're pretty close to the majors if you can succeed. And so I'll be very interested to see what happens, and also very interested to follow like what happens in terms of transactions, who gets promoted, and then follow those players at this new higher level that they land at. And so Scott Bandura, I do want to pull him up. I haven't really been following his season pretty closely, but he's 23, will turn 24 in like 2 weeks, and in high A, hitting .307, .399 on base, .439 slugging, 32% above average for the league, and 30 steals to go along with 7 home runs. Has only been caught twice with the 30 steals, and is an outfielder, I assume a good outfielder with that kind of stolen base total. So check back with me. They drafted him out of Princeton in the 7th round in 2023. So both of these players, 2023 draft picks that Roger mentions. Roger, a good authority. Give him a follow on Twitter at Raj61. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And then finally, we're going to get into this. The Giants Susan Slusser says SF front runner for 2028 All-Star Game if MLB players compete in Olympics, source says. And so the whole thing here is that the Olympics are going to be in Los Angeles in 2028, and the Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, said of major league players playing in the 2028 Olympics, I think the idea of playing in LA in 2028, there's some merit to it. I think it is an opportunity to market the game on a really global stage. I think because it's in the United States, the logistics of it are easier. We're going to have some conversations with Tony, the head of the Major League Baseball Players Association, but that process continues forward in a positive way. Obviously, the clubs are going to have to endorse this. And asked whether scheduling participation in the middle of the season is even possible, Manfred said, quote, "Yes, it's doable." And Tony Clark kind of echoed this, saying that players are interested, but the details would need to be worked out, especially with the schedule and things such as travel concerns. And that's where San Francisco comes into play. And some practical considerations such as insurance, but such matters were worked out for the World Baseball Classic. So Clark said, and this is all courtesy of Susan Slusser, there's just a lot of conversation that needs to be had sooner rather than later to see how viable this is, but we're hopeful that we can figure our way through it for the benefit of the game. So both sides appear motivated to have major league players participate in the 2028 Olympics in LA, and if that's the case, it seems that the All-Star Game would go to the Giants because they would want a West Coast team, and as Slusser points out, Los Angeles itself, San Diego, Seattle, and Arizona have all hosted the event more recently than San Francisco. And then she just throws this in to take a shot at the A's. She goes, while Sacramento is a minor league park and is not a consideration. That would be obvious. It's so obvious. I just love that she threw that in there. It's a minor league park. Anyway, I think this, by the sound of it, sounds likely to happen. And I was lucky enough to attend the 2007 Home Run Derby and All-Star Game, and it was just so much fun, so much better than watching on TV, especially the Home Run Derby, where it's like hard to follow, the balls flying all over the place, but to see them all, nobody hit a splash hit though. That was wild. So maybe that will change in 2028, and get your kayak ready. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun to have that, to be the host city. So hopefully this happens. And I would say by the look of this article and Susan Slusser's reporting here, it sounds like it will, but it's not guaranteed, but it sounds like it probably will happen. So that's exciting. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.